Gyamtso Gyamtso Dage Gyamtso Gyambe Sonam Gyen Rola Benzem Sanje Jobar Yo Sanje Judan Zoje Jonan La Sanje Baradu Sanjen Dage Gyamtso Gyambe Sonam Gyen Rola Benzem Sanje Tamje Deva Dan Deva Jodan Deva Jurje Domada Dava Jurje Domara Mebe Deva Damba Dama Dava Jurje Nyere Jadan Nyedan Jarve Tanyo Jembola Nevar Jurje Semje Tamje Deva Dan Deva Jodan Deva Jurje Domara Jodan Dava Jurje Domara Mebe Deva Damba Dama Dava Jurje Nyere Jadan Nyedan Jarve Tanyo Jembola Nevar Jurje Semje Tamje Deva Dan Deva Jodan Deva Jurje Domara Jodan Dava Jurje Domara Mebe Deva Damba Dama Dava Jurje Nyedan Jarve Tanyo Jembola Nevar Jurje Semje Tamje Lo Juzo Jovara Semje Laptu So Jilanda Jovara Semje Laptu So Lamdruva Zavara Semje Laptu So Drva Iki So Javara Semje Laptu So Tada Semje Tamje Lo Juzo Jovara Semje Laptu So Jilanda Jovara Semje Laptu So Lamdruva Zavara Semje Laptu So Drva Iki So Javara Semje Laptu So Tada Semje Tamje Lo Juzo Jovara Semje Laptu So Jilanda Jovara Semje Laptu So Lamdruva Zavara Semje Laptu So Drva Yeshe Suchawar Semje Laptu So Sender Drupa Nyambara Zinje Lo Zozo Gunde Zoji Lama Dan Rizal Zoji Minu Vije Kandu Jumra Deje Ro Marvan Zoji Gyamla Zorwan De Rana Rondro Nije Tabjen We Indiri Benjar Kwan Gyamsa Kata Gyenka Nangi Zela Pewe Ranzen Namye Gombang Ngonjo Yo Tene linje chudo samala kopatere kya da tene namba de simji tamje tene de wala na me paya da bozo sanje de komparo mo to prasa de chi da da ga ta re tam chu samo saki ja che wa tsurgyan de sin nyam salama gyo nyam be kono sanje chodo to ki pa da chu sim be kunju de tin be kon sin tsars.
Good morning, my Dharma friends. Please listen with the motivation of Bodhichitta, which is the...
Is it on? Yeah, it's on. It's on.
Which is the thought that all beings throughout space must achieve perfect Buddhahood, and that it is in order to bring that about that you will listen to and practice the profound Holy Dhamma.
Sanjo sen number ni de chin number tam ji de jun da ha ko ho de ta chama ge de ha ko ho de ka sanjo sen number ni de kon sanjo sen da don da sanjo sen ni ta de ne nga so ko pa ning so da bu ri la tam ji ge de na gi ri la ma tam ji de na gi ri so sim ji tam ji ge ju la ta sanji ji sa ni kon sanji ji kon ho to ko na mi de ma ra ma ra wa de ji ri the nani concept sanjo send the tatanga so make kanda wambo tambori the con namdo yuri namdo yu sari con namdo mala gado redo kare yo patela taki ke con seria de la ropa jaya ko samno jang ri then tarto sanje je ko ma to ko na donda sanjo sen tongni ke tawa go de ma to tongni ke tawa ma to sanje ke mari concept sanjo sen ta ja kale ri ma to je ke le taw je ke sanje ko mari ta te ni ka bu na te Cosa sale compagni banangi chat salary now called Priala Kabde Kabo Hiram Mevano Chan Kodri to Namian Yi the Dran Roma Joteni. Tate Sancho Sena Baniri, Sahanyam Katsia Road Cheche Road called the Nupa Cheche Road called the Mato Jeg, Sahanyam Nisi Dorje de Banyam Nisi Kayu, then it Gonzo Sancho Sem Cor Tipachimbo Portu de Naka. Kain Mihi second or dead or charm call Mari. Sahanyam Katsisena, Dasu, Tipachimbo Chute, Zati, Daily Chesa, Toniga Tawa, the Daily Repanosa, Daily Sarsa, Daily Dinsa, Daily Chesogro, Jaws, near Saga, Tondana, the Jessarsa, Hak of Tam call it that Jig drove in the Tindrick Langer, but to call the Mato Jag. Oh, Sanhag Yami say at the Jang Ji, the Tipachim when Yami Kor say at the Chesoke, Choking or some donko, Mado second, Zonkinda, some king of Sari need to get the Panda and the Jada, Yin Kim, Mado second. That's our Yinimani. Because Sanhag Yami say at the Tipachim needed the Tipati, Remja, Jets are Zodo, so Repajet, and Repajet, Shirap Jet, no read to call it. Tundikelatina, Sahaganyam is said to call him Mato Jagger. Tazu is a Tebachi Chia, needed to my yoke, Sahanyam is said to you, but Sonano. To do it out in the Mari. This Sanga, Pacha Sanga Lopa, Mato Jagger, the Sanga Dorje to Puchumari, Sanga Dorje to Puchu, one number, Hiram number, Repa Jeno, Jesasano. So, Lobra Jebati, Lobra Chumani, Drimboni. College University, the Jessars are Jetting, and the things are every said the thing called the Jessars are Kakakanga thing called the Jessars are Genon, Jengangari, Dina Girimato, Yinkao, then the Sanjo Sanabanide, to Jodo, Cheras of Simsu, the Tomago Conit, and you see at the baking.
You've all heard a great deal about the two aspects of bodhicitta.
Can you put your mic a little? Can you flow into it? No, I tested it this morning. It just doesn't. Testing on Tuesday.
Oh,
I do the sound test.
can you hear me now? Is it different?
Yeah.
So it's the same?
No, it's, you turned it on. It wasn't all the way on.
Oh. You've all heard a great deal about the two aspects of bodhicitta, a relative bodhicitta and absolute bodhicitta. These are the very life force or essence of our practice and development, and are the actual source of the achievement of Buddhahood. Among them, relative bodhicitta is accessible to thought, which is to say it can be cultivated in a conceptual way, such as reminding ourselves to cultivate benevolence, to be helpful, and so on. Absolute bodhicitta, which is the direct cause of Buddhahood and all of its miraculous abilities, is the view of emptiness, and therefore is not really accessible to concepts or thought, and therefore must be developed gradually through practice. In any case, both of these, both relative and absolute bodhicitta, should increase as we continue Vajrayana practice. It should not be the case that the practice of the Vajrayana or the involvement with Vajrayana techniques, it should not be the case that these in any way distance us from the two bodhicittas. Really, Vajrayana techniques are nothing more than a way to traverse the Mahayana path more quickly. Some people think that Vajrayana is in some way independent of the common vehicle and the Mahayana, as though it's an entirely separate tradition. But that's incorrect. The Vajrayana is simply a much clearer explanation of the Mahayana. Therefore, Vajrayana study and practice should lead to a clearer and more intense understanding of the Mahayana and also of the common vehicle. This is why it is said that the Vajrayana is designed for the intelligent, because it is designed for those who can most clearly understand the same principles that were taught in both the common vehicle and the Mahayana. Therefore, Vajrayana understanding and practice are like a higher grade in the same school as the common vehicle and the Mahayana. Just as when you reach a higher grade, you don't discard the things you learned in the lower grades, such as the alphabet and so forth. In the same way, in the practice of Vajrayana, we should never discard twofold bodhicitta.
Okay, then da kazan da la dam na teni nga so ke yorang yi sam sakin na ba sam ye yo ba na ne yora da mi ni song chan ne teni yot da ko wang ye li ya de da de re wang ye li ya da mo nam da wang ye de la ya yot de la sakin na ba你的什么的心呢？就是的，你那个什么那把对呀那就是的，他忙不死的那巧克力的，个玩意，他们个玩意的，他们买一把做人当，但你带到的今天，啥子钱不给打完了，把做个钱不真的啥子钱不打完我了把。nya par yo ya ta so na ba song ko ni pa ki ya na cho sa li o de da thmong ka wan ye de ka re se na thar wan ye ni ba ne lam ne ye ko ye sang won de sa la de ka man ten sam chu je wo ne yo lu nga yi so da cha nya ki de pa cha ta par se so de de ka re se na lama ta de je na ka la nga so ka lama ka san gom ne dio Lama de sapota, si pota, tempota, de la rang senda ir me pata re samno re tona lama de sapo kierum se ya de kadu ena sapo gong ta ko de sapo chunang dazo da na kan jathon ta so de kan ta ya de la be tambo nga so kierum de te so gong go de ma zoram de zoba chembo de pa nyam ne bi go na ka de ka wo de Jeram the Kari Gongor is in the Jeram the Sargos in Money Lodom Yapsenda and the Jeram Tambo Lord Units of Gongor, the Lodom Tambo Lodom Dog Naso Tata, such a lot of Lodom Dog require your money. Lodom Yapsend Yipat and the Lord Units on the Jeram Kimbo Gon and the Zoram the Zobache Saki de Yamni say to call it Zoba Chimbo and that Dorna Zoram Yamni say called the Mato Zoram Tambo Jeram Sarpo Simbo the Zati Sarpo Sipor Hamon, Zoram Kanyas Gomyo, not Homeri, Mokona did one again. Then the Kanda Dama Hyari, then the Cheso Jeram to Jondo Hirak Gonko, somebody, Jen Tombor the Yanya, Tenia Yat Lemata, Tombor the Yat, Tonyam Ravi, Tenia Lemata, Mawonda de Lecada, the Zondumi, Pasito was the Channing Kawari. They marry what a money, Jeram the Tango Yapo. Not so gonto. Then the Lamane, you go your sound, Salas, the comment is a John, you might China Party, Kitapa says, Lama get nay yet, so that Lamane son on, you were on, Debar, Togar home, they were sure, Caracom the Chori. That day the Lam good yak sound said, 추적 거 롱거 롱주 조거 거 트버 거 뭐니 저거 역 상원데 사보를 라마 거 송토 대화를 대 내게的 사보를 인저데 사토바게 시 데니 데레 산다 살랍 더츠 카먼 띵 some truths 데레 살랍 더츠 고 다 워저 다 더츠 고 강다야 카먼 띵 some truth 데 religion truth 말이 단대왕이 잡탑슬림 바나기리 religion truth 말이 데 가레는 겨워라 자와라 옴 제발아 토가 워저 카먼 띵 some truth 근데 찬양 거저 더츠가 나봐 겨워는 truth 효도 루마 이슴 뇽고 dropada hills dropada pacha dropada chanyam dropada bi daako de dropada daako dropada bi samar lujugoni kare sango le resina ta ngaso go lujugoni thomin thama dada bada so jubada mazangwala wada machangwa jebala so lujugoni mageva sumbo de cha me ba ngaso mageva sayore ngaso mayaga mari to mayaga insan de jungbo jambo mayaga insan de zawani mari 뇽몽바라지 방원에 더하게 남나 다로양 나랑 고몽 데요 바드르케리 데데 장고들 루저고네 소치바 마zem벌리 바 마차바교 바섬데 다송상 데네 거 데마텔리 나고고니 가레상고레시나 잔다 차마 직접 만차 딱 만차와 흉체봉 같은 거 하래 차마데 혁체본로 하더래. 잔다 차마. 색색된 할레바이가 넘버 히에가 뭐 많게 색색 세야 되는 양보도 잡고니요. 잡고데 태가도 마다 야랭도 오는데 색색 나게 돼. 양보게 수도 미들의 책인 양보 연대 바르게 머센데라 코 마라가 가래라 보야 될라 머센데라 메데와르 조유기 탐케바르게 책 양 요적고니 탐케바르게 야보고고니 직접 나기 오래 대가 뭐네 자네게 독자라고 세요 거래다 샤르 당가서 칸바게 책 좋아하고 말이데 책데라 책 코라나 야보를 왜다 돈 코라나 모티베이션 데다 독자르게 잡이야 든든자고 대로 나가고는 뭐게와 예 되네 이제고니 뭐게와 썸 남선 누선 로다 로버다와 또 장고데 다디 데니고 뇽조데 휴즈 잡아탐지 고 대탕기 상고 박약 장야 장자데 조데 대장고 장자 다데 드라마다 오리다 데나데 도센티 콘데나 오리다 조데 장자 데리 령아 이스 잡아데도 담게와 껴데 그거는 나서 령아 이스지 거 먹게와 껴고데 레코로와 대상 톤자도 완데 가레 토콜레지는 톤자 완데 거법바와 송상와 토키라비 기제와 츠마도 오니 혀만데 츠마 완이야데 토콜다 상한 냠네시는 완이야데 틴데 상게고로 완 본사 담보 거법바와 जो वज़र कर पोदे जो ओम द थमन रिबादा वज़र मार पोदा ते वाला वज़र ते मारी हिंगा द वज़र हिंगा द ते वाला वज़र खादो लिंजे को ते बशा द थमन ते छाजा द जो ने मा थम को ले थम दे द थम रो को ले तेने बंबा वां को बंबा वां थो को बंबा वां थो बा द रेब गारी साउ यो को ले से ना केरु को लिकेरु को बा द वां रेब ट्रिपल 상호 유래 요거들이 왕데 제름하이 거고마도 왕 토거들이 대마도 거도 사람 요거 말에 왕데 말은 대라도 송상호 왕 토니 갑설 거 가레시나 데브 거 롬주 조부가 상호 유래 나 다바 왕 데브 롬주 조부 상호 유래 요거들이 대다 왕길이다 기바리 대나 얘가 톡 히라비 이제 왕토네 갑슬라 히라비 이제 왕토 대다리 이제 등에서 공부하다 왕 제가 취직거에 상호 유래 요거들 대다지 찬염지 때와라 대다지 kirwanda tsangwang wang tamji tarba da de toko de da de reyen de hina de ka da ma hina de ko ya gen de sang yu de go go de de da wang ye top jaba ye da lam ye gomba da wang je ye ma de jor da tinji ye ge jor sang sam no dong ya de da tmonga da de ka so tmonga Kyatanga one year in Tan Kyatanga Sata 1 year and Rota de no re. Then they do gentlemen but Chiran of the 1 year in called one has a good salary. Then Rota de courage say you but the Tapaja Hak on the quality. Then that the re.
Continuing from where we left off, we're at the top of page 236. From among the 3 parts of the practice, we've completed the first part, the preliminaries, the going for refuge and generation of bodhicitta, and the main body of the practice, which is the visualization of the Guru in the sky in front of us, and the praying to or supplication of the Guru. Again, for the conclusion, which consists of 2 main parts, or Lama said you can divide it into 2 or 3. If you divide it into 2, it consists of the common and uncommon, receiving the common and uncommon form empowerments. If you divide it into 3, then it consists of those 2 and the final dissolution of the Guru into you. In any case, the main part of the conclusion is receiving the empowerments, and then, of course, the dedication of virtue and so on. But in order to receive the empowerments properly, there needs to be a clear visualization, he said, of the Guru in the sky before you. Without a clear visualization, the additional visualization of receiving the empowerments will not be intense enough. And this brings up, he said, the general issue of we need to be thorough in our progress through the path. Sometimes we try to skip levels. For example, having received teachings on the completion stage or the great perfection, we think that we can dispense with the generation stage practices. But this is not the case. If we look at history, for example, Arya Nagarjuna and his heart son Arya Deva both practiced the generation stage alone for 12 years, each of them, before they went on to practice the 5 stages of the completion stage of their deity, which was Guhya Samaja. In the same way, we should be careful to assiduously practice each stage of the path before moving on to the next one. In any case, the visualization of the common empowerments begins with, as the text says, from the seeds of the 4 bodies in the Guru's 4 places. So you now imagine inside the head, the level of the forehead of the Guru in the sky before you, a white Om. In his throat, a red Ah. In the center of his body, at the level of the heart, a blue Hum. And at the level of the navel, but in the center of his body, either a tree or a hoe. And these represent the presence within the Guru of the Nirmanakaya, Sambhogakaya, Dharmakaya, and Svabhavikakaya, or essence body, which is the unity of those 3. So in order to receive the blessings and empowerment from the Guru that will enable you to achieve these kayas, you now think that from those seeds of the 4 bodies is emitted blessing Amrita, white, red, and blue. Now you can think of this, Lama said, as light rays. The text says Amrita, implying that it's a nectar, a liquid. In any case, it streams out in the respective colors of the syllables. So from the white Om in the Guru's head emerges a stream of white Amrita. It enters the top of your head and dissolves principally into, Lama said, the Om that is actually within your body, in the head. Similarly, from the Ah in the Guru's throat emerges a stream of red Amrita or nectar that dissolves into your throat, again through the top of the head in this case. And from the Hum in the Guru's heart emerges a stream of blue Amrita that dissolves into your heart. And finally, from the syllable behind the Guru's navel, Shri or Ho, emerges Amrita of all three colors, white, red, and blue. And these again flow down through the top of your head and dissolve principally into your navel. Now, what do these streams of Amrita do? It says, it enters the top of my head and purifies my body, speech, and mind. We generally think that we're okay, that we're doing pretty well. Lama said we need to actually call that into question, because when we think of what we have done that we can remember and bring to mind the fact or recollect the fact that throughout beginningless samsara we've done lots of things that we don't remember at all, we have done a great deal wrong. With our bodies, we have killed, we have stolen, we have committed sexual misconduct. With our speech, we have lied, we have spoken harshly, we have caused schisms or disunity, and we have gossiped. With our minds, we have coveted, we have held malice, and we have held wrong views. And with regard to speech, especially when we think of harsh words, he said, harsh words are not only overt harsh words. A great deal of our harsh words, he said, were not like the Kampas in the story yesterday who were overtly rough. A lot of it is through passive-aggressive speech. We're very, very good, Lama said, at speaking gently so that it sounds like we're not at fault. But we know that what we're saying will hurt or otherwise harm the person to whom we're saying it. We've cultivated this ability. And therefore, that is really, while it may not seem like it, that is really the worst of harsh speech. In short, there is a great deal that we have done to be purified. So that's what's meant when it says it purifies my body, speech, and mind. Their equality means that fundamental ignorance that pervades all of our body, speech, and mind, and our doings of body, speech, and mind, as well as the cognitive obscuration and all of our habits, the subtle habits we have of ignorance, of kleshas, and so on. As this purification occurs, and it's much the same, Lama said, as what happens through the Vajrayana practice, which of course is a practice entirely devoted to this type of purification. As this purification occurs, we receive the four empowerments. So the text next says, I received the Vaz, secret, knowledge, and word empowerments. Without empowerment, there is no way for us to practice the Vajrayana. The Vaz empowerment of body empowers us to meditate on the generation stage and to achieve its result, the Nirmanakaya, the body of emanation. The secret empowerment of speech empowers us to recite mantra and to achieve its result, which is the Sambhogakaya, or body of complete enjoyment. The knowledge empowerment or knowledge wisdom empowerment empowers us to meditate in samadhi and to achieve its result, which is the Dhammakaya. And the word empowerment empowers us to meditate on the ultimate nature and to achieve as a result the Svabhavikakaya or essence body. And at the same time, these empowerments plant blessings within us. So they purify, they give, and they implant blessings. And the blessings they implant are the blessings of body, speech, mind, and wisdom. So the Vaz empowerment confers the blessing of body, the secret empowerment, the blessings of speech, the knowledge empowerment, the blessings of mind, and the word empowerment, the blessings of wisdom. And then it says, the seeds of the supreme fruition, the four bodies, are planted. By receiving these empowerments, the seed of our achieving the four bodies of Buddhahood are planted.
So, Tendi Ti Tsani, the Zoram Tamika Wangilin Sato, retained Yogati Sindina Dange Ma Yogain, then the Tamika Wangilin, the Kapsu, Kandagors in the Tanga, so Lusal Gongo, Lusal Gongo, but I want your top side, Lusal Gonsalawanta, the Kapsu, Zoram. Take on some that's some tango there. Round the Tamarta Nepal, some Tangama, around the like of some tango, like of Kanoja, some Tana, they got the Jinkapuka, Mojans of Condition, Tangas Tijanda Mepal, the Ondolary, then it turned the Ladovlan Derwachimbo, Kantaria, Zoremlan Derwachimbo Yori, then the cage around Dorje Namjorma, the Jinkapuka more the color, some depata. The Jang Ro Song, then the Kolonga, the Zade, Joe de Chijan Colon, the Balom Chijan Colo, Ninka Chijan Colo, the Triple Colo, Sunny de Georgia Colo, then Colo de Regan, the Summer Tang, Tang Colo Regan, the Tangas of Zorem, Lanri, Hinibonani, Heat Sadri, Joe de Chijan Colo, Sandama, Kare Yoba, the Summer Tang, Kare Yoba, Sandama Sunjisuni, Jimba Lomjujan Colo, Sandama Juro. Ninka Chujan Colo Zadamaji, there were Tribun Colo Zadama Tukiregi, Sane de Georgia Colo Zadama Sumjisuni, Saneta, Gioni, Zakibari, the Zankor de Yonzo de Dogdip, then they call Giodan, Jimbani, Yama Kajadili, then the Ninkata, Dewani Yama Kajade, Sane, the Gizoni Yama Kajade, the Taki Yemigun, and Sonsiga. That to do here. Some Colonga Zad, the days are sad there at the Rugoridan, then Nazoma Mambo Gonyoa Yori, Gomanyoma Yori, Kantarian days are Machina, Madevari, then it the so Moneta Negi Charan of Yamni Sina, Samakatoni Yamni Seari, Mato Jek Yang, Yoga Nagi Madakia Mari. The Tata Yoga quality, some time called it, and Natsoka de Zorente, Sanko Yamni Seari Mato Jack, Mala Tekataki Yaga Tendrick Mari, then the young yoga the Dawan Dawan those some surgery the heat of a Yana Charanso and Kando Kachi, you say, Pari, Kando Kachi, Kandaki Yori Sena. Dada Longchiba in Tambo Conga Pajade Kandro so one on the Kapsola. Kandro, days are Kodosoma, Kaloju or Karisina Kandro Makakere, Tekata Mamanta, also on the Contes are Gaderin, Contes are total Madevarin, and Kandro Market, Mamanta, also on the Rikak. Take out the Conga Kandroma, Yeshe Kandroma, Tamil, Kedaki, the Kondo, then Makaki Conga sell purgatory, Makaki sell Margona, then you want Manuniori, that Dengi, Manuniori, the one Nasa, Toman Nasa Corda, Kandroma, took Nisan, Choga, Ninka, the so Chatama, the Nangoyaga, Gayori, the Kandroma, Tom Minibasania, Mamanta, the Richard Lodure, Yori, Tangi, Dramat Sabo Madero. And Kantaria, the Karisina, Gyamtso Karisina, the so Sangwari, Sangwate, Najane, Chi Sangwa, and Hiniko Mari. He Sanore, don't Za, Holongata, Za Zomo, so that you, the Woma de la Tinka, Woma de Tinka, Gada Gumzang Tinka, Deni de la Go. Tini yedin the Kasa already Lorna by Numa Bontran Rawatan, Dexare, Tendrike, Tango, the Yagon Gio the Matokor. Then they Gio and Yatsuktor, Tadan Kajuka and Norga Kaki, Yopa Matok, part the Gongori. Then it the Rojani, the Ye Marta, Yon Karwa, the Sanadon, the day now Yeni, Bajan Rewards, Matewani, Pa. Sanne Devani Pakora Yam the Pambison, Yegi Chai Yap Nagiga. The Neko, they did almost some the Zoos in the Gom, then Polonga the Gom, Polo Yang, the Gom, Polo Yodan, Rimbatan, Yankatan, Devatan, then Sanne de Gom the Chokari, they gone, then the Lama the take cage the take gom sadu, then in Danger Lama de. Chor son, Dambo Dungelama, the other cut chor son, Yori. Then he killed us on the cup hat in the Ranga Kakanicho, Dina, give a lama the capas over a sonatone. Then the lama the ma, Gioni, woman and mason, the Yankala, Herka girl. There's a trubare. Then yum you bar, that's on the tongue of it. Then the lama Hinga was so Herka, Yangsi, Herka, Yen, Yavum de Kinjo. The Mama Della, Yum Yomari, Yum San Tanko Mari, Bawajiba San Tanko, Tata Della, Yum San Tanko, Tata Zoran San Tanko, Yum the Rau, Yum to the Yum the Kahani, Nama Yohanda, Chin Homari. Korank, La Koran, Yap Korank, Tombuchate, Yum, Starvichate, Yagri. These same Korank Mola, Yavumi, Chatando, Madojega. Yindarene, Pomon Zimanawata, Richimboawata, Yang Hajanga Yapo, Levo Zuzik, Dimbari, Namago Homari. Rancheso, Yori Yavian, La Yaviante. Rancheso, Yori, Dijano, Meba, La Yavian, so same Koran and Dravachuk Chimbori. Same the Sarvichati, Yavrita, Tombuchati, Yonri. Devichati, Yavrita, Tombuchati, Yonri. Then the Sarton, Deton, Chazan, the Yavian Sundr, when the deal. These are not Herga Yavian de Chijos, Sansen Jangagi, he told some Tate, my Zona Mazana, then my Tame 1 year medicine, the Chibari, Tate, my Kuna, that 1 year carried in course in a Tate, then our Lama Tambo to do you gone. Then Yanka with some so on the so Jenum de Tambo de Sapo gone to Tenig, not so 1 year de La Samatan.
The second part of the conclusion is receiving the uncommon empowerments. And this begins with the line in the text which says, then my guru enters the center of my heart and rises as a hiruka. This actually involves a great deal of visualization. First of all, before thinking that the guru dissolves into you or enters the center of your heart, you now need to begin to visualize yourself as a deity. Up to this point, it's acceptable to view yourself in your ordinary form. But at this point, to receive the uncommon empowerments in the manner of the completion stage, it's necessary that you imagine yourself as a deity. This could be any deity, theoretically, but customarily, in this case, you visualize yourself as the white Kichari. So at this point, think that in an instant, you are transformed into the white Kichari, with whose appearance you are already familiar from doing the practice regularly. Also, you have to, in order to receive these uncommon empowerments, you have to visualize the channels within the body. First of all, the body of the white Kachari is completely hollow, like a balloon of light. So its inside is empty. In the center of her body, like a pillar in the middle of a room, you imagine the avaduti, the central channel. It is blue, it is straight, it is empty or hollow, and it is luminous. It extends from the bottom of her trunk, her main body, all the way up to her crown, the very top of her head. Emerging from the central channel, in between the level of the navel and the level of the genitalia, but in the center of the body, are two side channels. And they emerge, they start at the bottom, emerging from the central channel as loops, like the bottom of the letter cha. The one on the right, which is called the rasana, is red, and it emerges from the central channel to the right side, goes straight up the body to the right side of the central channel, and then ends at her right nostril. The one on the left is white, and it's called the lalana. It emerges in the same way on the left side, from the left side of the central channel, and extends up her body and then hooks forward again to end in her left nostril. The diameter of the central channel is that of a bamboo, a slender bamboo stalk, Lama said. The diameter of each of the two side channels is half that. In addition to these three principal channels, there are chakras to be imagined. The going from the top down, the first chakra you need to imagine in this case is called the Mahasukha chakra, or the chakra of great bliss. It is in the form of a slender white channel. Dikapsa ka ma ting several jungle gongere. So it is in the form of slender white channels, 32 of them, that extend like the spokes of an umbrella from the central channel, which is like the whatever the main thing the umbrella is. And they are slightly, from the top point of view, convex, slightly concave from the bottom, in the sense that they hook slightly downward or curve slightly downward. Not as much as the spokes of a conventional umbrella, but a little bit. And again, there are 32 of them, and they are white. At the level of the throat, there is a second chakra, which is called the Sambhoga chakra, or chakra of enjoyment. And this is red, has 16 spokes, and these are curved slightly upward, so that the Mahasukha chakra and the Sambhoga chakra are facing one another, so to speak, in their curvature. At the level of the heart is the Dharma chakra. The Dharma chakra is blue and has 8 spokes. In this case, and this can vary deity by deity, but in this case, it is pointing slightly downward, like the chakra in the head. And then at the level of the navel is the Nirmana chakra, or chakra of emanation, which is yellow, has 64 spokes. And again, they are pointing upward, so that or curved slightly upward, so that the top 2 chakras are facing one another, and the next 2 are. Now, beneath the navel chakra, you may, Lama said it's not essential for this practice, but you may in addition visualize a fifth chakra, which is the chakra, the bliss sustaining chakra, and that is green, has 32 petals or spokes like the Mahasuka chakra, and is also pointing or curving slightly upward. And its upward curvature corresponds to the downward curvature of the sixth chakra that you don't need to visualize in this case, but that you would in other practices, which is the crown chakra above the head chakra. And don't worry about that. So you must visualize at least 4 of these: the Mahasuka chakra, the Sambhoga chakra, the Dharma chakra, and the Nirmana chakra. You may, in addition, visualize the secret chakra. So at that point, you have the basic container in your body for receiving the 4 empowerments. You next think that the Guru, who has been in the sky before you and has been facing you, as he enters your body through the top of your head, he turns around so that he's facing the same direction you are, and he flows down from the crown, the central channel, until he comes to rest in the heart. At the same time, his form changes. It changes in 2 ways. Up to this point, he has appeared wholly peaceful. Now he becomes semi-wrathful in the form of a Hiruka. And also, his self-apparent consort emerges from him. Now, the consort of the Guru in this case should not be thought of as a separate being or even a separate deity. It's not like arranging a marriage where you find a consort from a good family or who's got the right amount of money or who looks nice or whatever, and you bring them into your home. This consort is an aspect of the Guru himself. For example, when the Guru is visualized as solitary, as he has been up to this point, the Guru is the integration or the unity of lucidity and emptiness, which are the 2 principal attributes of the mind. When he emanates his consort, then he, the male figure, principally represents lucidity or bliss, and the female figure principally represents emptiness. When it's simply one figure, they represent both at once. And here, they're separate. But although they are separate, they are in union, and they don't represent 2 separate beings. They represent the 2 principal aspects of one mind. Now, Lama said at this point, when we talk about channels and so on, it can sound a lot like stuff you might learn at a Hatha Yoga center. And some of you may think that this is just like what you can read about in books about yoga, Hatha Yoga, and therefore can be openly discussed with anyone, just as we talk about yoga all the time. But this is very different. These things should not be discussed with those who are not practicing this. It may sound a great deal like yoga, talk of chakras and nadis and prana and so on, but it's not the same. And if you talk about it openly with others, you'll experience some upheaval. And the upheaval will arise because of the displeasure of the Dakinis. The Dakinis, in this case wisdom Dakinis, are the custodians of teachings such as the completion stage and the great perfection. Like any custodian, they're very, very careful about what is in their custody and what happens to it, how it's used, how it's spoken of, how it's thought of, and so forth. And when anyone, even someone who is otherwise eminently qualified, speaks too openly about any teaching that is under their close custody, they will provide immediate feedback. We see this, for example, in the life of the omniscient Longchenpa, who, when he first gave the empowerment of the Dakini's heart essence, immediately, as he was preparing to give the empowerment, was confronted by the Dakinis, who actually possessed one of the members of the assembly, and said to him, "Too many people. You got to get rid of someone. Too many people." And so he had to limit the number of people to whom he gave that empowerment the first time. And until he did so, he felt extremely uneasy and unwell. So you're better off not chancing it, because if such feedback can be unsettling for someone like the omniscient Longchenpa, it need not be said that for us it could be disastrous. So please be careful.
Lama Degum, Lama Heraka Yavium Sansen, Ji, Wajang Rosum Zupe, Zatonga Dunja, Zabdunja Bartamji, Gawa, Gavi, Tade Gawa Ye, Yulajes, Gawa, Choga, Chepar Gawa, Tinchi Gawa, the Gavari. Takares, Lama Yavium, Yorga, she had a Chapa Chimbo some tango. Chapa Chimbo, had a Chapa member on I give Chapa Chimbo some tango, Zoran Yamisik. Zoran de Caresina, Chucking a race about Ogo de Wachimbo treat Zoran the Zo here, Chucking a race. Chapa de Caresina, Matsoge, Dusiki Chapa Nagimari. Chapa de Dedon they don't hear me about a son of tango, the mother. Chapa one the song don't hurt down the local. Not so do see Chapa in a Pomog Jora say in the Capsula. They were you read it. Tele Charlie, Kacha Kacherilla, don't hurt lecker. Yoda lecker. Drink Madrek Leka Mambo some of tango. They think do see Chapa. Di Chapa the Temari, Chapa Tela Teen. They don't need some of our Sangian or Metopoku, Calawan, George or Jimmy. They don't need Delatin, they don't need ear me about the summer tango. They don't that they were going to zoom me about a chain. They were the more Tomba, Tomba, they were the ear me about a pan, Jim Rojokangani. That was some of the same cook, Tingo, Tenico. Zoram Yamni Sesona, Kijik they need a Sangier record. Kijik they need a Sangier record. Then the Lama Yogi Namjo Pomatamjika, Tapo and the Momo and the Port, Karen the Yogi Pomatamjika, the Yamnisia, the Teddy. Mato Young Taylor, Norway Chok Chibor. Chick Chasa Japop Chat, Sound the Yogi Radio, you see that? Yogi Rio Marito. They another chat Papa Tamika land of Kihol. Chazanga land of Kihol, Kotaka land of it, Koransoka. Koranso Kati top the land of Kordada. Sa Simboy to the land of Corsis. Della can't cheper the Monsayas Chow married. Zorum the Temari. And the Charans of June, Zorum so tons and June are Tajin. Chita nature, Gotu Jayat and Legata, Lopo Chatamori. They be member on your sinner, that can't come at the Bako. Can't come at the Lama Yaman, can't come at the Kulu King, Koranik, they don't go Gyamtso Jang, can't come at the Tenikoma, Koranik, Tata Mini Sanini, Ma Bamdu, Bam the Teta woman, Ma board, Soso Zawama, and Nikata Tamji Gang. Data woman and map on the Zarojani, the woman Chatham, Chathama, Gandro for it. Gandro do di dewa de zume wa yawenje roja ni ji zube za zo som da ta je na tong cha den je za ni zo pa je no ko ri tham ji par tham ji gang ro ko le gang du ta te la dewa zume ba ra ke nga zo da da ge ji dewa na ge ma ri zume ba ra ke je de te la gawa se ya de ta gawa je ju de je de te la gawi hi se ya de je ho tambo de
Now, if you look at your book, you'll say that the description of the empowerment is quite brief in the what you recite, and then there is instruction on it in the small print at the bottom of the page. What you recite is simply the father and mother unite in great bliss. Through the flow of their bodhichitta, I realize the four joyous wisdoms. That's not very specific, so therefore the description, the detailed description is given at the bottom. The first empowerment is explained as follows. The bodhicitta, which comes from the union of the father and mother Guru Hiruka, fills all 72,000 of your channels, principally the avaduti, rasana, and lama. The wisdom of joy arises in your being. First of all, the first thing that needs to be understood about this is that the state of the father and mother Guru as they enter into union must be one of great desire. And this is very different from sexual desire as we normally experience it. Our sexual desire, as big a deal as we tend to make of it, is actually quite weak, quite watery, quite pallid. The desire that is experienced by the father and mother Guru is billions of times more powerful than that. It has to be that powerful to cause the full flow of the white and red bodhicitta within the body of the father and mother Guru. It's also not only more intense, but it's also different in quality or character from desire as we know it. Our desire is not a cause of happiness. It is, as the Buddha taught, a cause of suffering. Because the way our desire works is we solidify it. Solidified desire is composite. In other words, we are mistaking the state of desire, which is a composite phenomenon, to be a solid. Through that mistake, the proportional to the pleasure that the immediate satisfaction of the desire creates will be ensuing suffering. So as much fun as you can have through ordinary desire, you will suffer proportionately later, at least by contrast. And that's because common desire, especially common sexual desire, is investment in the false perception of a composite state as solid and lasting. And we know this from common sense. If sex, ordinary sex, could lead to Buddhahood, if ordinary sexual desire could lead to Buddhahood, every dog, pig, and insect would be a Buddha. because they're all doing that every chance they get. And ordinary human sex is no different in quality than the sex of dogs, pigs, or insects. So while yogis and yoginis can use sexuality on the path, don't deceive yourself by thinking that what you do, which is basically the same as what any dog, pig, or insect does, is some kind of profound yoga, the lower gate to realization of Cont'd. And you can tell the difference very, very clearly, Lama said. If you have sex and immediately achieve Buddhahood, you're transported to Cont'd, everything becomes pure, you achieve the Sambhogakaya of great bliss, then you did it right. If you don't, then you're just like a dog, pig, or an insect. So don't fool yourself with this. Nevertheless, what happens in this empowerment is the father and mother guru do it right. So what happens as a result is that all of their white and red bodhicitta flow. It flows out of them, and they're in your heart. It fills first the central channel, all the way down to the bottom, all the way up to the top, and then flows out of the central channel where it connects to the two side channels in between the navel and the genitals, fills them, and then it flows out of all three, and you don't have to visualize the other channels in detail, but you should be aware that they're there. There are 72,000 major channels, and then there are 1 billion minor ones. Basically what they say is that every pore in your skin is the end of a channel. So it fills all of the channels in your entire body. Now this is different from some empowerments where you correlate the first empowerment with only filling the top of your head and the second empowerment. This one is more profound. And this one, all of the channels are filled during the first empowerment. And that gives rise to the first of 4 wisdoms. And this is called the wisdom of joy or pleasure. And this pleasure is way beyond any kind of pleasure that we can imagine. But it's still only the first of 4. And it's called the wisdom of pleasure because it corresponds to the first of 4 levels of the realization of emptiness. So what is being communicated to you through this empowerment is the emptiness of bliss. And this is why Lama said the father and mother guru are, so to speak, doing it right. Because their desire is not the desire for some kind of culmination, some kind of relief. Their desire is the desire for the realization of emptiness, which is a natural, an ultimately natural desire, not a shoddy or weak desire like ours. So therefore, their desire is both much stronger and free of being composite. It is not a composite state. As a result, the bliss they experience is empty bliss. It's also not a composite state. In other words, it's wholly natural. What we think of as natural is actually unnatural, but we don't know any better. They know better.
Also, one tambor gawa, tene the gene long cure the Paja long cure the vegetarian area, no long cure, a long cure say at the Tawarwa, the token what the zone in the long cures, the or then over the long down in like a long time.
You should say.
Read the Barwa, read the best, near check on bar, Tamkisi. Then you check on to jump along the near check on say that Tata Lama son de Dere Papa, convene to the Zak use on the Tata Kapukamo de La Giban. Near check to jump along there, Sonda, or that they don't danger, Marie check on the part time. Chat, Singapore, Hal Levaki Mambori, they lost the Chazamari, they can be long Mambo, Tonga when I saw Luda Yori. Tonga when the unit dead Tanki, long Zamdu Torse, the Nemama Zat and the Bandis or Chargi, they young Miranga, Megalakan, Zat Chari or Lakudo, Pepuma with my Chapa, Chapa, it is struggling. Then Jumana Pajabana, long the Young. With the park, Copando la Condo, they did some do Dorse at the day. Milarepa, some do Dorse, some Tapa say at the Naxi of somebody. There is something. That day, they dig along land, then they call some do the Toronto for the day. Long to the near Chedon Barta, chap. Led a long time, you woman do, lay long time, you thought woman do, Marbalos are Congo, the total pay. 炸切莫送对的，当个是早上的龙武嘛那就差点，早把切莫跟那老大话多搞的嘞，生活上让我的奶奶，龙生也没等着呢，大话定位多搞的嘞，马巴老在对的话，对的，俺说龙的大个龙的牛毛把个龙为人装着个龙满切的，对，在留了电话里了，现在电话里了，嘎嚓卡些就没去把俺说的接好的，一些就是接好的里的电话去好嘛。 第kapsa de la tablik demanda kantaria long chamu ri shi ga long ro ma la chong du di dev mo de ga yi di nga so de je ho de de dan di kapsa le ja long ta yo ma nam da da du be du par se de gawa choga ga mo de gawa de dele la gawa che sa choga ga yi de du la je ho da de.
Now, if you look at the text, it continues. Then their bodhicitta fills all 21,000 of your winds, drawing all karmic winds into the pure avaduti. The wisdom of supreme joy arises. What happens next is that as the emission of bodhicitta by the father and mother continues. The bodhicitta, the white and red bodhicitta, not only fills all your channels, but it starts to and does fill all of the prana, the winds and energy within those channels. Now, the channels that we're talking about here, Lama said, are what we call prana channels, wind channels. They're not coarse channels like what you would see in anatomy, nor are they exactly the same as light channels either. They're channels through which prana and wind flows. Basically, Lama said that there are 10 major winds, 10 major energies, the 5 fundamental winds and 5 branch winds, and then they diversify into 21,600 types of prana, which correspond to roughly to the number of breaths that an average person will take, and so on. And most of these are karmic winds, which means that they carry defilement, they carry conceptual thinking, they carry kleshas, they carry habits, and so forth. When all of these karmic winds are pervaded by this, the bodhicitta of the father and mother guru, they are transformed, which causes them to be drawn from their various channels. And as we've seen, there are a large number of channels ending with our pores back into the central channel, the Avaduti. Now, Lama said that when we talk about channel knots, you'll see that in a lot of Vajrayana literature, it will say, talk about untying the knots of the channels. He said his grandfather made the point, we use the term knots, but they're not really knots. It's that the channels are stuck together like a flattened tube that hasn't, basically the problem is that the wisdom channels, we use all the karmic channels, unfortunately, but we don't use the wisdom channels. And unused, they kind of become flattened and stuck together. So what you want to do is, by forcing the winds into the wisdom channels, you pop them open. And by popping them open, then those karmic winds become wisdom winds because they're in wisdom channels. And eventually this leads to all of the winds being drawn into the central channel, the Avaduti. So here you imagine this happening as a result of the empowerment. In fact, as Marpa talked about in his songs, when all the winds are drawn into the Avaduti, you achieve perfect realization. For example, when someone draws all their winds into the central channel, the Avaduti, and they remain there, they achieve perfect realization of the great perfection or Mahamudra. And that, in fact, is one of the main purposes of the completion stage, to do that. So this second empowerment pervades all of the causes the Bodhichitta, the father and mother guru, to pervade or fill and transform all of the winds. And as a result, you give rise to a second wisdom, which is called the wisdom of supreme joy or utmost pleasure. And it is a wisdom that is a further realization of what in the general we would call emptiness.
Oh, they something that once somebody Gini za Chanda Nyamba Tigle Tang, Yemit and Dritis, Gini za Chanda Nyamba, za Telemas, Gini, Namdog Tangana, Sem Koranga, Gini, Chang me by Talu za, Samatan Gode, or Tamki, the Tilik Chand, Baza Zomo Soma, the Tonta Dungeon Martili, Gini, Babu Komba the Nyamba, Chuntra Mambo, Zade. Tigle Gang, that Tigle Nevada, Tigle, Satin, Sindakan Ravanda was a Ghana in a part, Ben Jobon Rotoko, the Tilin Tini Yidin, then Chazan, the Gang, Tigle the Gang, Tigle the Yabatam, Yemit and Dream, Cheper the Gawa, Gawa, Cheche and Holiday, Cheper the Gawa, the take out the Yuki Holiday. That then the Yamni Mavel also Gawa Cassis Jetoku, also that they were Jones get Gawa Chamber the Samotadi. The so Gawa de la you Matapa. Now something depend on Jeto Corrida, Yamni say that the Gawa you. Cheper Gawa.
Then the father and mother guru continue to emit bodhicitta until next. Then the bodhicitta mixes with the drops in all your channels. Special joy arises in your being. Drops here are bindus. And we've seen that this Tibetan word tigli can sometimes mean a disc and sometimes mean a sphere or drop. Literally, it means a drop. So here, these are drops in that they are like separate or discrete drops of liquid that actually pervade your body. For example, you know, neurotransmitters or chemicals in your brain. That's an example. That's not only that, but it's all kinds of stuff. Now, these are in the all your channels have these, and they move. They can move very, very quickly from one place to another. And at this point, the Bodhichitta, the father and mother guru, which is their drops, so to speak, that mixes with your drops, so that your drops, just as your winds and channels were, are transformed into something like theirs. And that transformation gives you the third empowerment, and you give rise to a third wisdom that is called the wisdom of special joy. Now, at this point, the joy or pleasure described here is analogous to or similar to what we think of normally as sexual pleasure, because it is that type of pleasure of the nervous system. But it's much different in intensity. What we think of as really, as the Lama said, really intense physical pleasure is weak, pallid, pathetic compared to even the first of these joys. You know, it's like comparing a candle to the sun. I mean, the difference is tremendous. And so, although the second joy was called supreme, the greatest pleasure, there's something even beyond that, which here is called extraordinary or special pleasure. And this induces even, or really is, an even greater realization of emptiness. And so sometimes these are called the four pleasures and the four emptinesses, or the four realizations of emptiness. And we're not at the end yet. We're 3/4 of the way there.
Oh, that's it. Then the Luja Nang, Baba Tartova, Chabe, Linji Gabe, Namka, Chapar Yours. Baba then, Baba Kumbu Seva Sayala, Sa Seva Saya. Baba Kumbu Seva Saya during us, so Papa like the Kumbu, the Luja Nang, the Seva Saya, Tangme body. There's a Zatina Yor, Zari, Bowen Chong God, Zada Samotana, Dada Zada Samotana, Dada long long solar transit. Majuka Lama Tamji, long solar transit. Long Kandan Yondo done, long gone the Zatamji on Gand, then the Papa Tamji Gand, Solmite Tamji Gand, and then Zamba, the Tala Yodon, Cont'd, the long Denny Manga, the long Chatan, Tala de Dolet, and the dot on the Papa Tavanagi, Charter, then the long Tsigan or go to the Tundrika Samadan called the Tilly Dianagiri, Yandi Tabate, go Churchana, Omanana, Sandori Yona, Pomo Dacha Chioma, and Dorna Tundrikin, Gyamtso Tsiget Tundri called it. Then I get Babu Combo Chat, somewhat chop the other. Be Luigi Babu Combo Tamji Chapa, that Tilly Zana Chamdu, that Lama Yaviamnik, Deva Zoom it up. That Deva della Monetane Judina Tena, D Capsula, Jitika, Gurtuta, Sartan, Jantang Raw Yambala, Coranzo, Tomama Vichich or Sat Jantang, they con Chazogolo, Yabium Sundra, Jatati, Mambori. That tail the thing, they call Tilly the Gemama, Gemma, Deva Cheche, Tilly the Gemma, Che. Drum and Rohorva, then the Lucha Papa, Tartova Tamji, Chabne, Haleva, Jumatapa, Naka Chabanagi, Gabder Deva Chimbo, Jumatapa, Gavata Tara, Tandorna Gavata Tsin, that's a yo, Mevano, Gabder Deva Chimbo, Japson Roana, that Tendriki Nisme, that Chapter yours, in Tara de Devata Tomba Nisme, Pangana, Yambarjan, Dimi, Jumi, Gabder, Hima, the Javade, Saja Chimbo, here called it. That day into the Gave Chapter Charvate, Finchi Gavas, that Gava, Choga, Chepar Gava, Finchi Gava, Gava Yadda, one Yadajan, Zonogo Kapsa Tate. Exactly, that and don't do he in the theory, then it Jabara channels Shant the Trona, you have the Yamnesi, Zonum Sostina, then the Kalakala of Janso Tokari, and then the Kazo taken to Kali. Taylor last time, Gongona, Tata Titsuk and Dansa Tokomari. There's a tenders and some of them.
The next empowerment is, it says, then the bodhicitta fills your entire body up to your pores. Cont'd joy fills all the reaches of space. At this point, the bodhicitta of the Father and Mother Guru has first filled all your channels, then all the prana within the channels, and then all the bindus that are moved around by a prana. And now it fills every single tiny space within your body. And these are actually channels. I mean, Lama said, strictly speaking, everything is filled with, your body is filled with channels of one kind or another, billions of them. So when it says it fills all of your channels up to the pores of your skin, it means absolutely everything within your body. That gives rise to the final of the four wisdoms, which is the perfect or complete realization of empty bliss, or bliss and emptiness. And the pleasure that is the affect of that realization is called Cont'd, or co-emergent, means born at the same time. It's completely natural. It is the full and direct experience by your natural or fundamental mind of itself, of its own nature. So it is the full realization of emptiness and the full realization of the bliss that is the affect of emptiness. Now, the thing about this stuff, Lama said, is when we talk about the mechanics of the practices, here you're receiving it as an empowerment. It's all very, very brief. You know, you're just imagining the Father and Mother Guru entering into union in your heart and filling you with their bodhicitta. When the completion stage is actually practiced, it involves, obviously, at this level, it obviously involves physical mechanics. And the physical mechanics of it, when you read, he said that the instructions in the Tantras and the commentaries on them sound a lot like ordinary mundane activity, sexual positions and so on. But it's very, very different. So don't be deceived by the like there's the story of the old lady who goes to the great monastery at Lhasa, where there's an image of Hayagriva in union with his consort. And she says to the custodian of the temple, she says, "What are those two doing?" And he says, "Well, they're uniting bliss and emptiness in order to achieve and demonstrate awakening." She says, then my old man and me must have achieved Buddhahood then, because we've certainly done that. So don't make the mistake, if you study these things in the Tantras, that it's talking about ordinary sexual activity. To give you an example of the difference, the great Kajupas of the past who practiced this kind of stuff would early on, when they were training just the channels and the winds, before going on to the lower gate, which is this stuff, they would assess their preparedness to begin these practices by being able to saturate their entire body with prana and move it under their control, so that they could put their hand in front of, point their fingers at a pile of flour, and not touching it, blow it away. So they could send what we would think of as wind or a breeze right out of their fingers. And then another thing that they would have to demonstrate, at least to themselves, before going on to these practices, is, for example, to place their, whether they were male or female, place their genitals in a container of water and be able to absorb it, pull it up, and keep it up in their body and properly absorb it in a healthy way. So it's quite different from what we do. And so don't fool yourself about that. But if you want to do these practices, then at the appropriate time, they do exist. Again, he said this is very, very brief because you're just imagining this in order to receive empowerment. So we've reached the point where it says, then their bodhicitta fills your entire body up to your pores. Cont'd joy fills all the reaches of space. And that corresponds in the liturgy to, through the flow of their bodhicitta, I realize the four joys wisdoms. And then it continues from there.
All right. That they learn to do it in a Gyamtso, then a Cont'd. That all they don't need some of all the number Yaya, the kitchen body. Then Tata Terchen Barway Dorje, go coma, Jora Chuji Sonum Zambo, and then Tankada, and then Jora Chuji Yavianzo, this certain Jimmy Kambake, Chev Kondamadale, Koreke, Jam Atomari. Kondami, Jam Atomade, Koreke, Loma Ride, Koreke, Yamari, that the result in the Lombadilla, they are Mother with Hukim Chanari. Then a Cantaria, Logic, Logi, Dembajumkurwa. They correct Lama, correct Lama in Gojicaresina, Jora Chujik, Sonum Zabo, the Zav Lama, the Lane Trabajamsi, Lane Trabajamsi, Salon Rama Tops on the Ri. Then Tata Karom Atomde, Lane Trabajamsi, Samori. Then Jora Chuji, Sonum Zamboda, Lane Trabajamso, the Tine, Lane Trabajamsi, Tine, Salon, that Jazogodro. Salon the searching for Yamnis in the Yondo Gapso. Karo Atom the Summer, Machungoni. Then it take out the Landa Tabajamsi la Chu. Then it correct tea surrender with Janda Samora, the Yonda, with the River Didi Sunny. Then it Jenny Landa Tabajamsi King of Person, the Jora Chujisona Zambola, Georgia, in the Chorang Tomachis, Tarto Chorang Londoris, Natural the Jackians, not Samoris. Chorang the double of job songs, another Chorang cutie yabo, he calls, he told Mari Moralo Chonchori, Chazan he calls. Then the Jora Chuja Sonam Zambo, double job, Londro sits along Yam the Jang, Cont'd along the Rama Tom the Bay, Cont'd Chamber. Salon Rama Tomne, then Lama Chuji Yavinica, Nankala Pundomore, Chasmer. Then he Chuja Sonam Zambo, Nankala Pundon, Pundod, Yama Jijikan Pundod. Yama Yang, the behind fly together, Jimmy. Korani Tendori. Then he Chonkor called the Katsalan, Gana Jakara, call the Katsalan, Yamaji, Nika Changa, Desare Zene, Shabron Cham, Do Chembor, Tata, the Jorabazilla. Do Chembo, then Korani Gala Shaji Yaga. Yag Shaji Yaga, Atomaga Yaga, Nika Commandam Zilin, Nika Shaji Orita. Then he Yamajela. That's along in Rindor and Yak Sandor Zela. That's under Jena, Pinesri, Zela, Sankan, Ganglenzum, the Sankan Pondor, Ganglin the Nepti, the Congo Lomanga, the Wallomanga, the Galen, the person. Young or Chorala, you and Marala use. That Radon Soland and the Radon de Yagate and the young Morangam and Sanela and the Monsila, Vajrayana, Mother Trade, Long Manga, the Radon, the person.
Kecha didn't know.
Oh, or Kecha on a Hanju or Saturday.
That
They the longer Nika to do it, then he yap Yimotori, okay, Tachoran pay Hale for long as young those, Chodangan Dandaring those. Ambo Yap Konage. There's a moment the same. Young Chorala, you know, other years. They just say, that do you, that's all on the young. That got the
Some of you will be familiar with the basics of these stories from reading the Garland of Ketaka, and there's an account of the life of an enlightened woman named Atroma in that book. So this is, you'll know some of this. In a previous life, Terchen Barway Dorje was the Dharma Lord Sunam Zongpo, who's pictured somewhere here. I can never keep them straight. Anyway, he was a disciple of Longren Dragpa Jeltsin, who founded Chobrak Monastery. And Longren Dragpa Jeltsin of the Barang Paju perfected the practices of the channels of winds and so forth, and instructed the Sunam Zongpo, Juju Sunam Zongpo, in these practices. And while he was teaching Sunam Zongpo, Longren Dragpa Jeltsin was attended by his niece, who was Atroma. And at that time, she was quite young. She was a young girl and was just serving tea and so on, and not particularly, not yet a practitioner. But at the end of Dragpa Jeltsin's life, he said to Sunam Zongpo, he said, I give my niece into your care. Please take care of her, teach her, train her, and she will assist your mastery of prana. So, at this point, Lama said, the story will not sound good to your ears because you don't allow someone to be both a disciple and a consort. In this country, that's now illegal. Basically, you can be sued for that. So it said, but this was before and in a different place, and so you can't sue them now. And so he trained her, and she became his equal in realization. So that frequently they would fly. They both mastered prana to the extent that they could fly. And out of respect for her teacher, she would often fly just behind him. And another thing they did was one time they performed a Gana Chakra and both got a little bit drunk. And then there was a stone, a rock, a platform where they were practicing, and they got up and they started dancing, and they both left footprints in the solid stone, which they had imprinted as though it were mud. Now, eventually Lama said, of course, Sunam Zongpo knew that he was getting really, really good at this prana stuff. I mean, he was gaining realization, he was gaining physical ability. So one day he said to her, he said, look what I can do. And he took a kangling, and he stuck it, he stuck the mouthpiece against the end of his penis, and he blew prana out of his penis and made the kangling go wah, 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 wah. And so she said to him, she said, well, if you can do that, then I can do even better. And she took a radu, which takes more wind, and she touched that to her vulva and created a good armature, I guess, and blew that embouchure, and then blew that and made it, roar. And at which point he laughed. But there's still the nuns at Kechak nunnery in Eastern Tibet still do that. They'll still occasionally known to demonstrate that. I mean, I don't know. They managed to do it discreetly, I guess, but I mean, this level of practice is still continuing.
Yeah, Geja Nadan is really famous.
Yeah.
First, come Tibet, Eastern Tibet is famous Geja Nadan, Gyamtso.
Yeah.
Really, their lineage is still and they put something in the documentary also.
Oh, yeah.
What they show, and they have both Mahamandra and the Tzadong and the Dzogchen practice. Every
They're
famous.
Yeah, it's a monastery, it's a nunnery that is part of Dzogchen, which is a monastery complex. Very, very famous and said to have the highest, like it's just known very high level of yogic practice of both the Mahamudra and Dzogchen traditions among the women, most of their nuns, but the female practitioners.
Kesa Tsayang Gyamtso, the Barway Dorje, the Topgyal Dorje, the Nyari,
Yeah, a lot of the lamas connected with that complex were compatriots and friends of Terchen Barway Dorje, such as Bodhichitta Dorje and so on.
Tibetan woman, Tundori, Rangi Koranso, nobody, I'm going to call them and say, Kija Komari, Kija, the Nabula, Kija, myself to my was the Kija, Goma Koranso, Yamnik in its after the zone, and so Rangi could have seen with your touch about it in this Koranso Nubate. Someone called him out. The
thing about these Tibetan women is they're very quiet practitioners. They don't advertise themselves. They don't make a great deal of noise or talk about how great they are. But they're incredible practitioners, many of them. And they still act subservient and quiet and so on, but they're really they're tremendous.
The Kapchuka model, Zorango for Yachimbo, sorry, Tangarang de Yotama song, Garis and Yegam last one, Garis and Anya did Timamo song. The Kapchuka model, Zoran, the Trunkork Senrit, and Pork Senriti, pay your border. Do you get the Chatan Kong of you? Kong of Johnson, you get the youth. Then Truco comes on the Tata comes on Dorje, Truco comes on Barodoji, say Chongara. Kong Jin Lama and Barodoji came the pets, Truco comes a Kong on each other, so Truco comes a Gigin, Ani, Gigin, the 30 pass of Jambas, they say, then you bang up Jesus season, Jamaga. Then Kong you got some kind of. Then I'm your Tambo some kind of. I'm your Yegate or the Amiaka, Truco comes on you. Nyara cheese, I'm your Tambo, Lama, the Gigin, the Zonkan joke cheese or what. The gin truck comes out, Jardon where the Zonkan joke here with Jardon where the truck comes out, local maris in Anya like your locals in the park, local maris. And the truck comes out, Captain, Streck, Religion, don't see you can sing at the Bonjo, the love Chris.
Yeah.
That carries in a local, then Chonaka Carisi, you made the Keta Chon season. Here, come on, come, Captain, down, don't see you can sing at here, the Tambio, this Anya, Dragons of local maris. Got the Dupa, Konaka, Yoga, wrong, I said, Jack Ticker. John, you're wrong, I get the Context or Rama song, so the day. Con Zongo court to do all this on the here court, not Chonta to do Mixer Hasa Hirami, the genius under the so cooking for Rima song, Tata Barongi Chiro Rimas, Kabu, Thames Army of the desert, the Tikala, Hukimbo Sunjo, Sauer, the Nagate, Hirat, and Jatama song.
There's actually, according to Lama said, according to my grandfather, there were extensive texts of instruction connected with the white Kachari on the practices of the channels of winds and also the ejection of consciousness. There were all of the necessary teachings, but they got lost during the Cultural Revolution. What happened was that before they were arrested by the communists, my grandfather was teaching Tulku Kunzon. And so when my grandfather was arrested, he left the text. He was arrested first because he was the teacher and put in prison. Then he left the texts with Tulku Kunzon. And then when Tulku Kunzon was arrested and imprisoned, he gave them away because in my grandfather's words, he wasn't very brave. And there's an expression that with each strike of the cane, you tell them 25 things. It's talking about being beaten and tortured for information, that a brave person would be beaten to death and still not tell them anything. But the Tibetan expression is, you're so eager for the torture to stop that each time they hit you, you tell them 25 things. So it's not literal. Don't think it's an expression. And yeah, so because of that, he gave away the texts, and when he was released, he wasn't able to reclaim them. So Lama said it's unfortunate because he could have asked his grandfather to teach these things from memory, but it didn't happen.
Okay, then the gene Lama runs in me this Sanita Zoram Chazogata Sakiton Yabarioari. Then the Lama runs a yemin days, Lama runs a yemit Pandito Cortini, Lama runs a rank senta Lama Zoli Kahal Yemewa, Lama Zoli Pa Carpo Marpo Rima Sawang Rang Senzol Sorima, Yemit Pa Din, Yemi Ni. Nang dong rek dong sar dong song de jios, nang dong nang wa lama zo mi dong ba ri zo de mi rek dong ko rek ba ko ra ngo rek ba da ri zo de dong ba da ri zo de rek dong da sar dong pa song yo ri ko da song de jios pa yen mi de ri ko da don nang dong rek dong sar dong pa yen mi de ri ne kha kha ye ya me wa nga zo kha ye ya ma ta ya we na ke ji nang wa a ri Then Nang you come to Tombaris and Naki Tomba and Nawata so Hyapsaki and Kahal Yomari, the Kaha Mewadi Yamid and Dito Quality, Song Don Jo, Londe Saja Chimbo on the human journey, Yuma Donja Dorjin Chandra Koso. There is just over the same Tata 5 chapters, the only cups of drink you make it. 5 chapters and the Lagi Paka Yari, Kare Sena. Londe Zoba Chimbo, Yuma Donja comes on you. That comes to some Dorjin Chinese, the Chepakare, you make it. That's Hazonika get a kind. That the Rikeri, then Yuma Donja Dorjin Chandra goes, then Dorda the Monam Terry, and Monam Terry, and Dorna Chandra for Sayate, Saja Chimbo, and Yamar Yatsadu, then the Dorjin Chandra Savari. That the Rikega Nandapa. Zoba Chimbo, then the Saja Chimbo on the Yamari on the Jerry, then it there Mato, then Jinjoma.
Then the last part of the practice is the commentary says, finally rest evenly in non-dual bliss emptiness. Imagine that the unreal, indescribable wisdom beyond joy is revealed. What you chant at that point is, then my Guru becomes indivisible from my mind. Appearance emptiness, awareness emptiness, clarity emptiness united. Mahamudra beyond the intellect is revealed. May I accomplish the natural true Vajrayana. A couple of things. Those of you who are familiar with the 5 chapters as used, for example, in the Dzogchen retreat, this section, this empowerment section, like the visualization at the beginning that was presented yesterday, is used as a template for the 5 chapters. But because it's used primarily with Dzogchen practice, Lama said his grandfather changed it from Mahamudra beyond the intellect, because this is written as a Mahamudra Guru Yoga, to the great perfection beyond the intellect, and from may I accomplish the natural true Vajradhara to may I accomplish the natural true Samantabhadra. In other words, it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. The terminology is changed based upon the usage. The unity referred to here is important. Up to this point, Lama said that the emphasis has been on empty bliss, or the unity of bliss emptiness. We often talk about 4 unities, and these are appearance emptiness, clarity or lucidity emptiness, bliss emptiness, and awareness emptiness. Here, the other three that weren't mentioned before are expressly mentioned. Appearance emptiness, awareness emptiness, clarity emptiness united. The point here is that all of these things are fundamentally the same. And through the realization of empty bliss, bliss emptiness, all of these things are become manifest, become realized. And when we even say, he said, unity of bliss emptiness, unity of appearance emptiness, the expression naturally causes us to think of them as two things. When we say unity, it implies there's two things that need to be unified. But it's not like that in experience. It's a true unity, a true singularity that is indivisible. And although conceptually we can think bliss is this, emptiness is that, appearance is this, emptiness is that, the actual experience or realization of these things is not like that at all. There's no distinction, there's no separation, there's no division. So even the word unity, zungjuk, is misleading, because zungjuk in Tibetan implies a pair that are unified. But it's not really a pair that's unified, it's something that was never a pair. It was always one thing. And so that is the conclusion of that Guru Yoga practice.
다들 사자 전부 조과 전부들 람 남절 때는 동주의 제거들이 다도 되는 되는 대도 자들 되는 람그럽 자들이 뇽마 동주 검장 용럽 자들이 건더상부 동다 된럽 자들이 대도 선다 되는 나랑게 샌다 라마조 카하라 요마리 나랑게 샌다 예담조 카하라 요마리 나랑게 샌다 추종조 카하라 요마리 예민이도 사자 전부 롱 잭도 사자 전부 자 잭가 자 사자 디 나도 파 The
point of all of this is that when push comes to shove, we actually realize Mahamudra, or the great perfection through Guru Yoga. And when you realize the true meaning of Guru Yoga, which is what we call receiving the Guru's blessings, there is no longer any difference between the Guru, your mind, and the deity. And that's what we call the realization of Mahamudra, the realization of the great perfection, the state of Vajradhara, or the state of Samantabhadra.
Then the London Nasa Jugar say the Tonde Koyala takes Yichia the Kavor, Koyala Lesawaris on the Mohasanga, Lave Yimichi, the same sounds of let loud is on the same sunset at Hakoyala. Mother problems imichi, but problems not believed or daily the motto Hako Tokodri. Hako Namtogi that the concept Sanjok send the Hako Zaya de Karerisina, Nazo send Tatak Namdotel and Dravachuk Chemboro, they get mother Salina days are top de worry. Lord Nasa Judarte, Chonake Sandra the Hak was at the Nishinan in Nagan the Hako Tabare. 동다를 하고 니시나니 이는 대의 예치세는 냠니조 토고들이 대리마도 저게 인다 저서 갈레카오시라요.
In relating to these things, as Kenshin Mipam put it, there is we face one difficulty, which is that whenever we're faced with anything that is inexpressible, indescribable, and inconceivable, like this, it's easy for us to understand, but hard for us to believe. It's not hard to understand the idea of something being inexpressible, inconceivable. We simply create a kind of a consciously created blind spot. That's incomprehensible. So we understand that we don't understand. That's easy. The problem is believing in it. Because we are so used to thinking because we operate by thinking. And understanding for us is largely or usually a matter of thinking. It's hard for us on a deep level to actually believe the concept in the inconceivable, because it's outside our experience. That's really the only, Lama said, the only tricky thing about this. Aside from that, it's easy. That's the only stumbling block.
That's all. That really, no, Mamangone, Nangavi, Anya, the Jitza, Levgudilla, Lo Chongchonri, the good chew in a South Chikamari, but a Tahanda Rima, the choose, say, the Tonda Karayeme, Chick Tahanda, as a Chick Tahain, son, Chick Nero Tabelo, the Teno, Manchu Tahara or is, Manchu Tahara or Yate Tabe, the Gini, Tatambo. The river the Chinga Taha and Jane Sando Mato, choose or the Karen, Taha, Sonsa say out of Karen, Meti, or Chirachi, hear me, Cosera, the Zaku, Cosen, Monkey Nangiri, then they are getting Loganda, Yeti, Lord the Zonke to the Sindo. Yamatawa, Hokated, Anya Chicha, Dekta, Chicha, as other. The cheers for the Samsa Anya Chala, Nisa, Chala, Corezala, Nijay, Samsung Kahada Nido. Yet, who go the Hansen or the Chaitrioma. Hoki, the Chiseda, then the Anya. Coma German bed on Trunkerja, but on Trunker, so the Salon go on Trunker the Jana, the Voya. Then, go as in a go tree, sit there, Anya Tsaya. I don't dream of the God second artist. Then it did the Anya Tsaya, the Shojam in the Tokari. Shoja don't samba no other tea coresa, then Pechate, that samba sa Pechate, samba sa through, Dokari. Then the Lord Judah, he borrowed the Lord Judah, they are gay, they are not. That the river did the market, like a Lama train, the Lama they call Pagindo and Sari, that hasn't don't hug another Tedon, but the Lama Mucha Terami, Pagindo, hasn't the called Teddy, another Tedder up, Tianga get it, they are getting it all the heater. Thing I get about Anich seat that did us say that get the Yamaka Trivi Tajo, the Tessar, Kung Fu Young. Kung Fu is a chain of it, like chain. I need to Kung Fu here, not so raw of it. Zobio, Galega, your Hakori, Tata, Hamso Marilla. Oh, yeah, I need to Kung Fu here, and Yaja, law trainer. That then I show you guys from Shunish monk deal, and I show you guys. I didn't get out, train them, don't get up, they do some of them that the good video and the gene video and can't get some out.
When I first began to study with my grandfather, I was very young. I was really just a child, and I knew that I wanted to study Dharma because Dharma was, I heard that Dharma was this wonderful thing, and I had no idea what Dharma was. I just knew that Dharma was important to study, and I was a monk, so for me that meant wearing the clothes. And I wore the clothes, and when he gave me a text to memorize, I memorized the text. And I didn't really pay too much attention or understand too much. My mind was basically just a monkey for a while. And, but I noticed some of the times I stayed with him, and I would notice in the early morning that I would hear from the next room this smacking sound, and I would think, what's he up to? What's Grandpa doing? And of course, Tibetan doors don't fit very well, so you can kind of look through and see what's going on in the next room. And I would see him; he'd have removed his clothing and was doing the adhisara, the physical yoga practices for the 6 dharmas. And because I didn't know what it was. But I saw him doing it. And if he saw that I had opened the door, then he would stop, close the door, and then the smacking would start again. And, I knew, then we'd have breakfast, and while we were eating our tsamba, then he would show me the text and I would start to memorize it. And he would tell me stories about his teacher, the second Barway Dorje, and about Terchen Barway Dorje. And some of the stories were funny, and he would laugh, and some of them made him sad to remember his teacher, and he would cry. And I didn't understand what devotion was. At that point, I just thought it was family affection. I said, well, he must feel like somebody who's lost his father. And it must be, that must be why he cries when he talks about this. Now, having seen him do these physical exercises, the only thing I could think of that it might be was some kind of martial arts, some kind of kung fu. Because I had seen kung fu in movies, in Chinese movies. And I knew that it was existed. So one day, I was a young boy, and I said to him, I said, Grandpa, do you know kung fu? Can you teach me kung fu? Because I've seen you doing what looks like kung fu. And he said, no, it's not time for that yet. I'll teach you that stuff, but that's not time for that
yet. My grandmother cuts out. My big cuts out. Big cuts out. Big cuts out. 아니 창도 때서 저서는 창도 라자 되는 나한테 창도 라자 되는 때 그래마게 갑병 땅에 야랜에서 독자는 마음보 나와서리 라자리 잠깐만가 아니 때서 컨트롤 라인이 치다 왜 되는 고다 돌 디 가자기 고 차장 돌되는 커서서 동디도 소 동네 서 동네서 되는 게 그 버충하되게 아데네 마서긴 아바도 공포요리 아바 아마니 다곤 초바도 아바를 거칠 때 아마 잡마리 돌자는 고 포겨를 이라는 게 되는데 마게 그래마 때서 히 까마트는 공포도 그나한테 휴는 가서사리 아게 망보히는 역사 말이 삼성랑 희죠 되는데 다 가래 에메 미히데 너는 go 찾아도 통해서 게르마 히야도.
I had another reason for suspecting that my grandfather knew kung fu, and it was that my grandmother, his wife, she kind of had a temper and a sharp tongue, and would get mad at him when he got drunk, which sometimes he did. And so one time he got drunk. And she was yelling at him for this, and berating him for being drunk. And he punched the door, and his fist went right through the door. And so I saw that, and I thought, oh boy, Grandpa has great kung fu. So then I said to my grandmother, and I said, Grandpa has great kung fu, doesn't he? I saw him punch through the door, and she laughed. His son said, Daddy has kung fu, really good kung fu, and his wife, Lama's grandmother, the boy's mother, said, oh yeah, you better be careful, Daddy's kung fu, he can kill us all if we hit him.
They know. So you give me
Says, I don't know what it was that enabled him to punch the doors. It could have been his prana, but maybe he did have kung fu ability.
Thank you, and all your trouble. Sonam de Damji Zebani Done Nibe Jana Banzi Jega Namje Bala Roba Ye Sibe Zone Roa Gewa De Ye Jehogo Sona Yike Sozo Yike De Zome Tamba Gönye Doba Yo Sanjo Sene Rinpoche Maje Bana Jijer Jiba Nyamba Neba Da Kone the Bewayo, Sipji, Tamji, Dedan, Dejoji, Nidro, Tamji, Tata, Tombayo, Sanjo, Simba, Kanda, Saryo, Deda, Kunje, Mola, Rupayo, Sanji, Rije, Zin, Tambe, Kajakan, Duyatun, Limbai, Sajje, Mizan, Reva, Sangha, Sije, Sonda, Jabe, Tashi, Sho. So good. Thank you, everyone. Well, the Yekong did do no, yeah, that do no. Not so. Okay. Thank you.